Okay guys, so let's go over a pre-season kind of vehicle check. What do I go over and what do I get my staff to go over for these pre-season vehicle checks to try and ensure that we are having our vehicles in as best condition as possible. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to run smoothly every single time, guys, but this is to try and help out so that you have a vehicle, especially if you have plow trucks that sit through the spring, summer, fall, and only get used in the winter. This is what I do in order to try and ensure that we have the best success for our salting and snow plowing season. Number one is every single truck that we have will get insured and will get driven for several days. You can't just take it for one drive, one day. And you have to take it for probably like a 2-3 hour drive. What this does is this gets the vehicle up to operating temperature. It gets it up to speed. You do, you accelerate, you stop. It cycles the computer to make sure that it's reading everything. It's going to throw any codes if it has any codes from any bad sensors or anything like that. It's going to get the brakes to operating temperature, and it's going to help show if you have any calipers that are sticking or seizing. I don't know a season yet that I haven't had to change any calipers. It's just something that I have to do. Hubs, you're going to want to check the temperature on your hubs to make sure that you don't have any wheel bearing issues or anything like that. After those test drives, and you want to make sure that that you're also going and checking your windshield wipers. So if it's a nice day, well, you're going to look kind of weird, but you're going to drive around with your windshield wipers on slow. You want to make sure that your lights are all working, and you don't want to just turn your lights on and then walk around your vehicle and be like, yep, it's working. Sometimes because we live in such a ridiculous, not live, but work in such a ridiculous environment, the corrosion that happens on these vehicles, it's bad. We all know that. But because the vehicle was sitting all spring, summer, it might still work for the time being. But once you start using it at a longer length of time, such as leaving your lights on while you drive, or you leaving your windshield wipers on, or having your salter on, having your plow on, stuff like that, whatever connections that are hanging on by a thread burn off, they burn up. And all of a sudden, what did work and would work for about 30 seconds doesn't work after 5 minutes. So you have to check this stuff for a longer length of time. This was proven with the blue Ford that I recently posted a video on about how to diagnose the plow lights, headlights, high beam and low beam. It already passed the checklist, and then we moved it around the yard a couple times, and I noticed that the lights weren't working. So with that being said, what happened with that one, to spoil alert for that one, is that a wire was corroded. It was probably hanging on by just a thread. And then all of a sudden, just in moving it around the yard, the headlights stopped working. Well, that really would have sucked had it been on a snow event in the middle of the night. We would have had a truck that was out and like completely out. Yes, we would have just literally cut the wires to the plug, the harness, and directly wired it to the battery and gotten around that. But that's not the right way to do things. It's a quick fix, and it gets you going again. But ultimately, these days, sometimes months, of going over your trucks and making sure they're good for the winter is to help avoid these things from happening. Another thing that we do is after we do the test drive, sometimes we drive around with the salter, like the auger going or the spinner going. Yes, nothing's in the salter, but we have it going. But sometimes we don't necessarily have a salter on that truck yet because they're still up in storage. But we do run every single one of our salters at the shop for a minimum of 30 minutes. And this is to also help make sure that we don't have any poor connections that are going to fry out bad wires and stuff like that. And this is what's going to happen, is that you can turn on your hopper and you can let it run for 30 seconds and yay, you check it off the box, it works. Okay, great. But then you're going to go out salting for a 4-hour salting shift, and your bad connection is going to fry. And all of a sudden you don't have a salter anymore, and it's full of salt, and it's not like you can just take your salter off and look at it if you have to. I mean, usually the wiring is fairly accessible at the back, but it's just something that that it's better to go over ahead of time and try and ensure that you have something that's running as best as possible. Spare parts, this is something that you want to go over and make sure that you have. I do have a bunch of spare parts for my trucks already. However, I'm not just talking about trucks, I'm also talking about salter control boxes, maybe vibrators, plow solenoids, plow controllers. You definitely want some spare parts for everything. That's why I always encourage people to try your best to stick with the same brand. So I have several different plows. I've got Meyer plows, I have Western plows, and I have a Henniker plow. I haven't stuck to the same brand of plows. I find them more indestructible. Salters, I do stick to Salt Dog. I'm not sponsored by Salt Dog in any way or shape or form, but I have had good experiences with them. I do think that there's a lot of user error that makes them have a bad rap. They did go through a bad time where the control boxes were not good, but we bought extra control boxes to get around that. So that's something that you need to do, is just make sure that you have spare parts for everything. And when you have everything that is the same, you kind of only need one spare part that covers 7 trucks. That's why you want to stick to the same brand. But yeah, just going over the trucks, guys, making sure that everything is good to go beforehand. It takes time, but this is something that your clients are paying for in the salting and plowing services when you're on site, and that's why it's expensive. It's expensive for us to be going over our trucks and going over repairs and everything like that, whereas if we have breakdowns, it's expensive and liable to have any breakdowns and not service, but the customers need to be paying for that. You can't send them a bill for changing a caliper for 500 bucks, but what you can do is charge properly, and that way when you have to change a caliper and do some brakes on a truck and it costs you 500 bucks, you just shrug and it doesn't really matter because it's already paid for. So I hope this kind of helps and gives you some ideas of what you have to do in order to get your trucks up and running for the season, guys. Stay safe out there, ask questions. I really didn't touch base on much of anything. I got a list in the shop that I could probably go over, but yeah, it's something that's really important to make sure you guys stay up on. Okay, take care.